I'm replacing the nuts for the exhaust manifolds with brand new. I want to be trouble free, but then another trouble arrives. Some of the studs stay stuck in those. So here's how I'm using several thickness of rags to clamp on the stud. I try to clamp it, but not, it's got to be hard enough to hold it, but trying to be not hard enough to make marks on the stud, which is still possible. It's going to do, and then it's a matter of unscrewing that nut. Once you get it out of there, sometimes you got flat spot on the thread. If so, you take a triangular file, try to fix it, and then you use the same nut that you had and you screw it back in using the proper E-socket here. You want to make sure that the thread has got one or two run with steel, because it's then screwed into the aluminum cylinder head, so you don't want to fuck up the thread in the cylinder head. And if it gets too bad, just order a new stud and just change it. Set it up, the nut in the vise, and then you just screw it to get the first run on it. Then you screw it in the cylinder head. Don't use too much leverage doing so. Sometimes it's difficult, but it's got to be relatively easy. So if it's too much of a if you find too much resistance, you just remove it and either file it down again, or you go again with the nut. Make sure the thread is fine. And you screw it all the way till it reached the midsection where there's no more thread. That's all there is to it. There's no need to be torqued so much. When you're gonna torque the nut, the whole thing is gonna hold together. Torque it by hand like that. Just grab it and turn, and that's good enough. Whatever you got there, it's good. You can double check the others, make sure they're fine. So we'll keep going, replacing all the studs that needed, remove them from the nuts and replace the ones that are not good. And then it's going to be a matter of putting the exhaust manifold on there. So you need new seal that you put here in the cylinder head. If you have a hard time, you can always put them on the exhaust manifold itself. It's gonna act as a puller to put them on. You just put them here. Check which side fits best, because it's a taper pipe that you have here that comes out. So you rely on the nut to put the seal into place. So we're gonna have to torque it like as straight as possible for the seal to sit in properly. So you can use a Torx 50 for those at the bottom, because they're a bit tight with a regular socket. So you tie them up all around, try to pick up the loose. You're looking at your flange, try to make sure that it's going all around evenly. The idea is to get the gasket in, the seals. And for this one at the bottom, it works better with this because it's a straight shank and it doesn't interfere with the shape here. So when I took the other one here with the shape of this, the socket gets sideways. When I do this, it's kind of sideways, it's not in line, so it's not working as good. This is working better, just to pick up the loose. So this is what you're doing until this thing is completely flat to the cylinder head. Then when you reach a point where it's too difficult by hand, you go with the ratchet, but you go easy with this, as you want to make sure you do it evenly. You try to see your gap that way and that way, and you just put it in place evenly. So what I found for a torque for that is 177 pound-inch. 177 pound-inch. I'm going to start by the middle, up, middle, down, then going outward. I'm using the Torx bit, so this way it's easier to do the one at the low, these two at the bottom. You might as well want to recheck the others once you're done, because if the gasket got in a bit more, they might become loose again. So once this is done, we do the exact same thing for the other turbo. The turbo that goes on the rear has got his actuator rod up front of it. The one that is forward being the pulley side. This one's got it underneath. Also, you got the flange here that is on a 45 like that. The other one will be on a 45 like that. You know, it's time to install the hose on the turbo system. You want to replace the O-rings, because we want to get rid of any potential leak. There's a bunch of O-rings in there. I'm going to try to mention to you which one I use to replace those. Make sure they're the same. Yep, that is pretty much the same. Okay. So every single one of them, they got every hose, mostly. At least this one. I'm gonna start by the oil. oil line that's at the bottom in the middle. Just gonna clean a bit with a screwdriver this groove because it's a bit it's not very clean. It's like there's some crap in there prior to put it on. So I replaced the O-rings on both ends of both of these hoses. So this end here for this one, and the other one is this end here and the other end here. So these hoses are going from this hole here, and they're going on the back on top of the turbo here. Got the two holes for the coolant. This is the forward turbo, and on the back it goes above, from behind and above the rod of the actuator, vacuum actuator. Okay, and this one is gonna go above here on top of the cartridge. Same principle. They are this is where the oil is coming out. This is the oil pressure supply to the turbo. So I'm gonna connect this part only, making sure I can work my way with the sheet deflector that go behind these two parts, which look like something like this. So the key is to put a drop of oil on the O-rings prior to put them on. We're gonna put a drop of oil here. We'll make sure there is oil all around. And this one goes behind this turbo here. You can already put some on the other O-ring, because it's going to be more difficult to access after. So you insert the hose behind it. Then you get in here and you push this thing inside. This is done. So this one here is almost at its place, but I don't want to put it in already, just in case I'm gonna need some to move it a bit for the sheet metal to go, the heat shield to go behind it. Now we oil the other O-ring, both ends again. If there's any dirt, remove it before putting the oil on it. So this one goes behind. It's got to go under the it's got to go behind the actuator rod that's behind that turbo, and it gets above it. So then you line this thing up. Try to be in the same axis as the hole before you push. This is done. The bolt for this one is the Torx bolt that is kind of long. I would say eyeball it. It's about almost 2 inches. It's matrix system, but it gives an idea. In matrix system, that would be close to 50 millimeter. I'm gonna put a bit of never sees on that boat in case I need to redo the turbo again. I don't want to get in trouble because of rust. So that boat got to line up and holding the two of them together. That's good enough. So now I'm gonna set the two other hoses that are coolant hoses that go behind the heat shield. I'm gonna change the O-ring, put them on, not clamping them, but just put them behind the heat shield, and then I'm gonna fix the heat shield right away. Then I'm gonna be able to play around with the hoses, making sure they're not gonna interfere with the heat shield. So just to show you, this hose here, it's this one that goes here on top, as this one here is this one here that goes on top. Okay, so to proceed on that step, the O-rings are for a coolant system, so we're gonna put cooling on them. When you get a BMW cooling thing, it's pure, so you have to mix it. There's a chart behind it. Normally it's 50-50 unless you live in a very, very cold place. So the best way to do that is, if you got another one like these, you split it in both of them. You check here the level to get about 2 liters. Then add 2 liters of water in each, and then you mix on those, so you know which one is mixed and which one is pure, if any. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to install the heat shield, right? So this is, the heat shield goes like this on that side, so you need to roll it like that behind. It's got to go behind. Gotta go behind the actuator, and then you want to put the bolts on. Now it's just holding by itself. I'm gonna put a bit of never sees on the bolts, on the thread. The socket for it is a E socket, it's a E8. So I'm going to put just the two that are above. If you got like bolts that are more rusted than others, you want to put the good ones on top. Because if you're going to have a hard time with some bolts when it's going to be time to remove, you'd rather have that hard time where it's the most accessible, meaning at the bottom. Of course, if you want to have trouble free, you go for new bolts. But I figured they're good enough. But improving the HUDs in case anything might happen. So now they're just in, it's loose. The idea would be to set the hose where it's going to be. So this is this hose here with the rubber, and so the longer part, I would say, it's the one that goes on the turbo. So what I want to do is I just want to put the hose underneath the shield. The O-ring have been changed, by the way. This O-ring here and this O-ring here, they both have been changed. I can just let it hang here so that the hose will hold in place. So I can put the third bolt here. The other bolt is there's a bracket that go at the middle, on the middle. So I cannot put it right now. So this one's done. Then it's going to be a matter of doing the same thing on the other side. So this one is going to be like that. This clearance here is for the oil hose that we installed. So again, you want to go this one is a bit more of a challenge, but it's going to fit. It has to. Okay, so now it should. Okay, so again, take your best bolts, try to put them above. If you have a hard time, you can use one ratchet extension that is that doesn't have any swivel on the end of it. And then time to put the final hose underneath the shield. So again, the longer one goes on the turbo side. So, and again, this one is a bit more tricky because you got the actuator rod. So we can put it like that. This one is more accessible, I would say. So I would put right away the bracket that goes here. Now time to put this bracket here at the bottom. So it goes like this. The one that is further back obviously goes for here. So we want to again put some never sees on the bolts. I had to clean one of the thread on the brush that is on the grinder because it was having a bit of rust on the thread. and there's this final one we miss at the bottom here. Not gonna look for torque, just use common sense for that, it's good enough. I'm just gonna tie up first these two at the bottom here. Almost in, then pick up the loose with the others here. I did also remove the gaskets that are on these two flanges here and here. They are like big donuts. Gonna put brand new. I did that, I forgot to say, but I did that just with a little screwdriver. A bit like you remove an O-ring. But these, they make a lot of dust, kind of, so you gotta try to be careful not to spread it all over the place, especially on inside the turbos. Try to remove, here I put a lot of never sees on the heat shield, so I want to remove it. So then it's just a matter of torquing the whole thing. So we'll start with this here. So they're all torqued. So we're gonna move on from there. That's what these seals that are here and this side, they look alike. So make sure that the O-ring here is still oiled, then push it in. Okay. For these, I take these short screws, short bolts, Torx with a washer. Gonna put a bit of never sees on those. Try to put some just on the thread, not on the washer. So there's a little tab like this here on top. You just have to bolt this there. Same thing on the other side. It's not the end of the world if you got some on the washer, but as much as possible you try not to. You gotta snap this one. If you got a hard time, take a big flat screwdriver and you try to push on the flange. So that's a torque's 230. So using one of these. Try to make sure that I had a bit of a hard time with this one, so I gotta make sure that it's properly in. Checking the gap between the flange and the turbo is gonna tell you if it's properly in. It's because of the hose might have a bit of a flexibility or something. Sometimes when you snap it in, it's not exactly perfect. You know, when you torque this thing here, if it rotates a bit or something, I can actually try to loosen up that one and try to see if I can snap it better. It should not leak as it is. That should be good enough. And torquing the other one on this side. So now we're gonna install this hose. Change the O-ring again here and here at the end. So this one goes right here in that hole here. Whoops, sorry about that. So it goes in that hole here. The retaining bolt goes here, so that one goes from here to here, and the way to install it is the flange goes here, this one goes here. I like to put coolant when it's coolant going there, but it's not working enough, so I'm going to put oil to make sure not to break the O-ring. This is going to be just a drip of oil, and then I'm going to be sure everything's going to be fine. I kind of believe that this one is not in, and in fact it is, because there is a spacer. It's not the same level where the flange sits and where the hose sits. There is a spacer in the hose, a bit like this. You see the diameter is thicker than just the flange here, so that's why when you check it feels like it's not sitting properly, but it is. Okay, so I'm going to put the short torch screws for that one, a bit of never C's or NTC's if you like better. that one I can torque right away. Okay, this one here goes first. You can see it's deeper. The thickness here is lower than this surface. So I'm gonna put a drop of oil instead of putting the coolant. It's gonna slide in easier. Then pop that one in. Then this one goes after. Drop of oil on the O-ring. That's in. These bolts are longer. I'm gonna put this on, since it's a double flange. Never sees, NCCs. Oh, this is too long for a boat. Doesn't fit right. I'm gonna have to check for a shorter one. Gonna have to go with a shorter like that. Then time to torque it. Fair enough. Okay, so now coolant is plugged to the engine. Coolant is plugged here. It's gonna have to be plugged on that thing here, but first we're gonna do the other side. So the other side, same thing. The longer one here, drop of oil. This one goes right here. It's in. Just for the fun of it, I want to try the long bolt I had earlier. Yeah, that's a long boat. I'm gonna have to replace this boat here because these two are long boats. I'm gonna replace now this one here. This one's going to be good for connecting here with the turbo. So same thing, this one here, it's got to go in first because this part is lower than the other one, so I might do that right away. Drop of oil all around, snap this thing in. That's all the way in. Now this one here, we need to put a drop of oil on it. It's more difficult now where it is. Go with your finger all around. That's the best you can do. Then push this thing in. That's it. It's in. We're gonna put this bolt. The bolt that was here, the short one, because it already has the Nazi C's on it. You can put another drop. And then the bolt is right here in the middle of the two flanges. Somehow it doesn't align properly. Going to show you around right after that. Okay, so if we go through the turbo installation once again, make it clear. So first off, we install this hose here, which is the supply line of oil. This one is snapped inside the engine, right? Then we had, and it goes behind the heat shield, behind the turbo, and it goes right here on top, behind the heat shield. Then the other one that is right here, that gets inside of this one, and that is connected to that bracket here. This one goes, same thing, behind the turbo, behind the heat shield. It's a bit hard to see. You can see it from here. And it gets right here above. So first we installed that in. Then we just took this hose here, coolant hose, that goes behind the heat shield. We just have them insert them behind the heat shield. Then we put the heat shield in place. Once the heat shield was in place, we did the same on the other side. This one here, that goes at the bottom here. This one here goes at the bottom, right here. Once this was done, then we install these one here. So this, no, sorry. Then I torque the bolt here on top for the oil supply line, which is again these two here. This one here and this one going like that here. So torque these two bolts. Okay. Then what we did is installing this hose in here. It appears like it's not in place. It's because the hose got a recess behind, a bit like these thing here, like a circular part. So that's why here they're not at the same level. This for the flange of this and this, but it's really in place. So then insert that one, torque it. Then this one is lower than this one because its surface where it sits in is lower. So insert that one, torque. Same thing on the other side. Insert that one here. Okay, bolt it in place. Then same thing here, lower than this surface here. So insert that one here first. Then insert that one. Put the bolt in place to torque it. Once this is done, this is where we are now. So now it's a matter of putting here the big pipe, installing this thing in place, and then underneath the turbos. Let me try to show you. Underneath the turbos, right here, there's a gasket that goes here, and then we install that thing, and the return line goes right where these paper plugs are. So same thing on the other side. If we look underneath, this thing here, if I look from a zoom distance, this thing here, put a gasket, then the hose is gonna connect to this thing here. So really what's missing is just that part here. Coolant hose connecting to the big coolant hose. There's a big pipe that goes all the way down to the pump and the thermostat down there. So that's mainly what's left to be done. Okay, so this surface here had been cleaned before installing everything. So that is there's a line, but the idea is to make it flat. Doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be beautiful, it has to be flat. I clean also a bit this face here, and also the groove with the screwdriver, making sure the groove is as good as possible. So, and replace the seal that was there with a new seal. So now we're inserting a new seal. Okay, and now this thing has got to be installed. It's going to be installed like that, behind the two hoses. So again, we're going to put some never anti-seize on the treads of the boat. Pick up most of the loose, but not all of it. And then we're going to put the two remaining bolts at the bottom. These are the E-Torx head, kind of a bit long. then before we put the never sees all over the place, we're gonna wipe it off. Some fingers, some tools. So I'm gonna check the torque for that. So what I found for torque for this thing is 80 pound-inch. So I'm gonna torque the first above, then the lower one opposite to it, then up again the other side, and then the opposite lower one, like a cross pattern. That's it. So this is torqued. So now we're gonna have to oil these O-rings. Just a drop of oil removing. I kept the bolt on those. These are the bolt. They are Torx Ed short bolts. These O-ring has been replaced. Remember when we installed the hose behind the heat shield. So make sure you oil it all around. And the other one here. Again, all around. Okay, then we just put this thing in. It's in. And then the other one. In. Then just putting the bolts in. So these one I wanted to use the torque because there's a rubber seal underneath. This I'm not so concerned because it's just to bolt it to hold the flange in place, so nothing to go crazy. It's bolting into aluminum, so doesn't take much just to hold in place. That's good enough. So these two are secure. So now all of the hoses are secure. The only remaining are the two ones that are from underneath the turbos up to this side for the oil return line, and same thing here behind it, underneath it, sorry, and in that hole here. So I'm gonna set those up, replacing the O-rings, and then this is what we're gonna install. Okay, this gasket has got a bump on one side and it's grooved on the other side. So I'm going to put the bump facing toward the cartridge of the turbo. Okay, so I replace this O-ring. You need to clean the groove prior to put the new seal, and this flange here you need to make sure that it's clean. You can scrape it also with the rigid scraper, and then we're set to install. First off, we're gonna insert the O-ring in its hole here. This is the most difficult part. The other one just sits on it. So we put a drop of oil on it, put it all around. Once it's good, then we just gonna push it in. You have to make sure you push this thing in the axle of the hole, right? It's kind of inclined into it. So now that this thing is good, we're gonna put the seal, the gasket, on it. I'm going to, I got a bolt that is ready with never sees, so I'm gonna use this bolt on the hole that is the further back. It's gonna hold it in place. So then it's just a matter of okay, hold on, I'm gonna clean this up a bit. I've been doing some, put it dirty a bit. So get the seal on it. Then I'm gonna line up the hole with the bolt. You have to kind of push the hose down there a little. So now let's get the other one, the other bolt ready. Okay, now it's aligned with it. Now it's just a matter of making sure it's gonna fit in the hole. It's not in line. That's good, it's in place. So just pick up the loose of the bolts. Then we're gonna look for a torque and torque them up. Once they're torqued, then we're gonna be able to torque this one at the bottom to hold the flange. So the one that I use for the two bolts where there's the gasket are a bit longer, and the one that's gonna be holding the flange here, it's shorter. Because this thickness here, if I'm not mistaken, is thicker a bit than this plate here. So I'll check for the torque, I'll get back to you. So this is the access you have for installing the bolt. It's kind of tight. If you have too much of a trouble, we could have, if you look here, that coolant hose, we could have wait till we plug this one, it would have give a bit more access. So if you don't have a tool that can fit in there, you can always wait to put this one to snap it in. That would make the hose that, if you look down there, that's the one that is creating a bit of interference to it. So the torque I found is 71 pound-inch. So I'm gonna torque these to 71 pound-inch. Done. Done. I like to put never sees, especially when I torque into cast iron or steel or something. So this is why these bolt, that screw in the cartridge there, I really like to have never cease on those. This one here at the bottom, maybe we can put, because it's lower in the engine, maybe I know there's a splash guard underneath, but if there's water coming from the front grille, that's the only reason I would put that on. So if I'm gonna put just a slight touch of it, and then I found the same torque for this lower bolt, but that is just for a flange, so I'm not too concerned about it. I'm gonna play it by the feeling. I'm going to clean the mess I did around the head of the bolt. If you put never cease, try not to have some underneath the surface of the head that is gonna sit on the bracket. That's not as good to have never cease there. That's good enough. And now up to the other side. So now we're gonna, this is done. We did the two bolts underneath and this one, that's all there is to it. So now I'm gonna remove this rag here to uncover the hole for the return line, and I'm gonna get ready to install this one here up to here. So we start with a bit of oil. We're going to insert this thing here, again in the same axis as the hole goes. Now this is set. That's good. Okay, now it's in. You can try to gauge the space you have here. Underneath there's like a puck, like this flange that goes with the pipe, and you can try to gauge the gap that you have with the engine block. It's going to tell you if you're properly in or not. Both sides, make sure it's good. You don't want to lose oil there like in a ridiculous way. So now it's time to insert the bolt in here on the flange, and again the seal with the ridge facing upward. Okay, then it's a matter of trying to slide that thing in place. So again, you kind of have to push the whole thing down. The hose wants to spring back out. So once you're in line, if you can let the bolt just slightly standing out of the gasket surface, and then you push, you will feel when it snaps in the hole kind of. Now let's insert the second bolt. So just kind of pick up the loose. Then we torque, same torque as before, which was 71 pound-inch. Let's start with the one at the bottom, which is the worst to access. And then the little bolt at the bottom to hold the flange toward of the return line to the bottom of the engine block. So once this is done, which is we can say the case, the next step will be to get the transmission ready clutch wise, because I'm replacing the clutch bearing. So once they're replaced, I'm going to be able to hook up the flywheel to the engine as well as the clutch and pressure plate, and then it's going to be time to insert the engine. It's in the hood compartment, and put the transmission to it. That's it. Turbos are installed.